Okay. Good ones. No, I've never seen these. That's obviously the end of the first season at Stewart-Haas Racing, and exactly the reason that I came. So, you know, I think winning the championship and doing all the things that we did that year was interesting and fun, and wound up achieving everything that you wanted to achieve. So that's why I came.
A little bit younger this one.
A little younger. Yeah, that's. I always tell people that my career started backwards, and you know, I think for me on that, you know, during 2001, during that particular time, you know, I had already had my biggest press conference. That's obviously the biggest race that I've ever won. So you had the most eyeballs, and everything happened in really the first 3 weeks of my career. So that was definitely unexpected. Still, you know, I think when you go back and you look at that, you still didn't really know whether to be happy, sad. You didn't whether to know to be. You had so many emotions just with everything that happened with Dale and the team and everything that was going on, and then to win the race, you didn't really know. But still the biggest race win I've ever had.
And then you look at this one here, which.
Yeah. So, you know, I think Indy for me is something that, you know, I grew up in Bakersfield, California, wanting to be a IndyCar driver, and winning at the Brickyard, I guess that was 2003, was obviously a big moment for me, just because you're kind of living out your childhood dream, wanting to race at the Indy 500 and seeing one of your heroes, watching him grow up, and then actually celebrating on the same racetrack in the same facility, and just in a stock car. So Indy was, as a kid, just something that I always wanted to do. So to be able to win there, especially the first one, you know, that was really the first of a few. Yeah, you know, I think when I look at that picture, I would probably, you know, that was probably at some point during 2014, I would say, back when you could bring your kids in the garage and on the pit box and let them come to work with you. So Keelan was fortunate to actually be able to go to work with me, and we took him pretty much everywhere. So he got to grow up around everything that we were doing, and so, you know, that for me was a lot of fun. And you know, Keelan had a lot to do with everything that we had going on. Just when you have a little guy rolling around with you everywhere, you feel like you have an example to set. And really going from RCR to SHR, you had a big change in just how you looked at things, and he had a lot to do with that. So, but he went everywhere. He was all over with us. Yeah, you know, I think for, you know, Piper, she's really, as we've gone through this particular season, she's been with me a lot, and you know, to be able to have her have those memories, and she's been in victory lane and been around a lot of things as well, but she was always, you know, small, and you know, I think as we've gone this year, we've had a lot of fun just going from place to place, and so she's 5 now, so her having some of these memories before I retire, and it's just so much different with what you can do with the kids now compared to when Keelan was coming up, because I mean, he would sit on the pit box for hours and stand up on the top of the trailer during practice, and she would do all those things you can't. So, but you know, being that Mom and Keelan have been off racing, Piper and I have spent a lot of time at the racetrack this year, and she loves being there. She loves the people.
Do you remember, like, when you first started thinking about, like, here's how I want to end my career, here's how I want to walk off that stage for the last time?
Well, I think for me, I would have just walked off. And really, I think as you look at the way that the last year has gone and everything that has come with it, and hearing the old stories and letting the fans celebrate and letting the contracts end and letting the sponsors do their thing, and all the things that have come with this has been somewhat refreshing for me as well. I had a lot of people around me tell me that I needed to do it that way. And I think as you look back at it and reflect on it, it was definitely the right thing to do because of everything that there's a lot more to it than just walking off the stage to do it correctly. And I think doing it correctly has really been, you know, the main focus of everything that we put into the last year. So I was very fortunate to be around an organization at Stewart-Haas Racing that had Tony go through his last year, and really his team's input on, hey, these are the things that Tony did good, these are the things that Tony would have done different now that he's had a couple of years to step back and reflect at it. Marcus Smith had a lot of influence on really having the input of, hey, this is why you should do this for the tracks, this is why you should do this for the fans. You won't regret it. It'll be a lot of work, but you won't regret it. And it has been a lot of work, but you know, I think walking out the right way is definitely better than just walking off and turning your back and not letting everybody know that you know, that's going to be it. Because really, when you listen to the fans and you listen to the stories and you listen to them making an extra trip to the racetrack that they may not have necessarily ever seen, or hearing the stories of the influence that you had on their lives, because a lot of times we lose track of the impact that we have on the people watching. And I think when you hear some of the stories of the people that, whether they've seen it on TV or they like seeing you with your kids, or they like to see you in the car, or they like to hear the things that you say, or whatever that story is, somebody going through a tough time and just being able to turn the races on Sunday and getting away from whatever struggles that they have. Those are the types of things that I've really have brought everything into perspective as to why it was the right thing to do. So the team has done a great job. It's been fun to hear from the fans and the tracks and the sponsors and the old paint schemes and old helmets and all the things that you've been able to accomplish, and let your guard down and say, you know what, that was pretty cool. You know what, we've had a lot of success here. We've been fortunate to win a lot of races. Man, look how young you were in that picture. It's just been week after week of things like that. So for me, it's been pretty good because I've always had my guard up and always didn't want you to know too much about me or him to know what I'm thinking, when I'm banged up a little bit, or when I'm not feeling great about my car, and not letting other people know that my car is going to be slow today, but I'm going to beat you on being smart and doing the little things right. So, not having to worry about people knowing too much about you to gain a competitive advantage has been a lot of fun, because I know I don't have to come back. You can know everything you want about me now, and hopefully it makes somebody else's career better.
So as we were looking at the pictures, obviously, that first win, that first race, you had the spotlight on you immediately, and with your intensity, it allowed you to kind of prove to everyone early and often that you're ready to be here?
It was a tough situation, and I think as you look back on it now, and you realize that there's a lot of meat on that bone, and I think for me, as you look back on it, it was good that I put my foot down and I spoke up for the things that I thought were right, and I fought for the situation and the people and everything that goes with being comfortable to make the car go fast, and I didn't do it any differently than I had done anything up until that point. But I think from a professional standpoint, that could have been done probably different. But in the end, how do you learn those lessons? You're just learning them at a really high level in front of the world. Whether you make a mistake or make a bad decision or say something wrong, you were definitely in the spotlight. And I think without that situation at such a high level, because of the situation, it made you grow up quicker, and it made you mature a little bit quicker. But I think for me, it's still a show, and I think when you start with everything that you started with, with Dale dying and winning the race and having everything go good, as we got into the next year, you had to figure out, when the cars weren't running as good and we weren't performing as well, you still had to figure out how to make the show exciting and keep yourself in the spotlight. And so there was just a lot of things that went with it. And I don't think that a lot of the scenarios that we went through were necessarily wanted, but they were definitely scenarios that taught you a lot about the sport and created a lot of relationships in the sport, because at the time you didn't realize it, but we ran, I think, 71 races that first year, National Series races, and we were kind of in this cocoon because we tested and we raced, we tested and we raced, we tested and we raced, and they really protected me from having to deal with all the rest of it by just letting me race and letting me go from place to place. So it was, there was a lot to deal with, but it didn't really show up until 2002 when you had to actually deal with it for the first time over the off season. And there was a huge generation gap between Dale's team and the expectations that I had from just communicating with people and the way that I wanted to do things. And so everything I had done until that particular point was very vocal, very straight to the point. The car's good, the car's bad. But I think, a lot of people don't realize, but the year before I'd done all the testing for Dale. So I knew the team pretty well. I had already been in the car. I'd already been to the racetracks. I'd already made thousands of laps in that particular race car. So I think as a racer trying to progress through the ranks, you're always on edge. I mean, I worried about that up until the time that I probably sat in this chair, because you take a certain responsibility of making the car needs to perform, and if it's not performing, you need to survive. And if that's it. At that particular point, you're down to survive and making something out of a day consistently, but going back to the shop and trying to solve the problem with the guys is a necessary evil. But 2000, I think the pivotal moment was probably winning that race at St. Louis, because I'd torn up a few cars up until that point and had to sit down in the boss's office and him tell me that I needed to quit wrecking stuff. And when Richard tells you that, that you need to get your stuff together and at least start finishing the races. And we went out the next week and won. So just takes a lot of mental capacity and time to do it right.
So throughout this whole journey, Delaina's been right there. I mean, everyone knows the story with that first race, and you guys fresh on your relationship and marriage and everything. Is this a retirement for her as well?
I think she probably is pretty much done with it. As far as trying to keep up with both of the kids, and she's traveled all over the world really with Keelan and a lot of his racing and the things that he's been able to do, and I think we've gone through these conversations together and just trying to find the right time. And there's just so many things that there's so many tentacles that reach out and touch so many aspects of it's not just about us, right? So Delaina's and the kids are obviously a huge part of it, but in the end, it's not just them either. And that I think for us is probably one of the things that we're looking forward to, is it can be just about us and planning the things for Keelan and Piper and myself and Delaina, and having some flexibility in that schedule. I love racing and we'll still be around it, and obviously in the TV booth and around the teams and the management company and all the things that we have going on. But you have so much more flexibility in your schedule and the things that you do and the things that you think about and the places that you go. Everything that we do right now is planned around the race schedule, and you plan your vacations around it, you plan your kids' school around it, you plan everything that you do by that race schedule that is given to you. And I think when we get to June and we look at each other and say, well, what do you want to do now? That'll be new, and I think a lot of that will revolve around what we do at home, but also Keelan's racing and the things that we have going on from a professional side of things.
So one of those tough decisions probably had to be, leaving Childress to join Stewart-Haas. Do you feel like that was one of your toughest decisions? Obviously, it didn't happen instantly. There's a process and conversations, but where did that rank in one of those tough decisions on moving up your ladder? Yeah,
I think that was definitely one of the hardest ones, because really everybody that I had grown up around from the time I moved to North Carolina was a part of that team. We had built the whole Xfinity team from scratch, basically. I came to RCR to drive the Xfinity car, and my crew chief, Todd Barrier, my car chief, my mechanics, everybody was built to run those two cars. And Richard and I have a great relationship, and have talked about we talk about, man, it would have been if we could have just won that championship to get to the next step, to continue that forward, and that would have been the ultimate way to probably do it. And you always want to have one team, but it just came down to, how do you do that, right? How do you get to the point of being able to win a championship? And so, walking into his office and him being able to sit across the table from you and you say, hey, I'm leaving, was tough, because we had become great friends and built all these relationships, and I don't think at that particular time it obviously went over exactly how you wanted it to go over, but a couple years later it was, man, I wish we could have done this, and everybody had the respect for the decision. And knowing Richard today, as well as better than I knew him then, he, being the person that he is, had more respect for you sitting across the table from him, telling him yourself, than the decision itself to go to a different team. That meant more to him, and still does, means more to him than the fact that you went somewhere else and raced the car. So in the end, you only have the relationships in this sport, and we've spent 30 years building those relationships. But Richard Childress, is a big reason that I have all these relationships, because he'd walk you right into the NASCAR offices. And the first year I went to Daytona, he made me go to the NASCAR offices and walk through the whole facility and meet every person in that office, because that's what they did every year. And it was important to have those relationships. I had to go to every dinner. I had to go to every meeting. I had to do all these things. But little did you know, you were building all these relationships that really helped you through all the tough times in the sport, and helped you understand how the sport worked, who the people were, and how all that works. So definitely the hardest decision. But I think running that 29 car one more time at North Wilkesboro this year really allowed people to understand where that relationship was, and how strong that relationship is and will continue to be as we go forward.
That championship year, tell me how you felt in that moment when you know that it was attainable, that not only did you win the race, but you won the championship.
Well, it was not our best year. I think we had the fastest cars, but we had a lot of failures and a lot of situations that just didn't work out our way. And with the point structure and the way that the playoffs work, it just, we were able to win our way to the championship, and it overrode all of our flaws, because of the way the system is designed, right? It's not really about, the system is not designed to have the best year anymore. And you don't win championships like Earnhardt used to win them, by having the best complete season. And I think for us, we didn't have a truck, we didn't have a trailer, we didn't have a nut, we didn't have a bolt, we didn't have a race car. We put everything together, from hiring a driver to hiring Rodney and to be the crew chief, to him hiring the car chief, to all the way through everything that we did. We didn't have a sponsor, we didn't have anything, and really, I think for me the final piece of that puzzle was when Rodney put his foot down and said, we aren't going to have tantrums. I don't want to deal with all the nonsense. You can't do those things here. Your cars are going to be fast enough to be able to do what you need to do in a race car. You don't have to create the sideshow to keep yourself relevant. And for me, that was like, oh, that's a lot of work. To be able to because like I said earlier, it's a show, right? And when things aren't going good, you have to figure out how to navigate things to stay relevant. And a lot of times it was just a show. It was me spinning somebody out, or pushing somebody around, or whatever it was. It's a show. And if you're not winning, you have to figure out how to make yourself still valuable and be relevant.
What is the best advice you've gotten from other drivers who have retired recently that you have taken to heart when you think about the next 2 to 3 years?
I think for me, probably the best couple pieces of advice, I think Mark Martin was one. and it was just make sure when you're done, that you're out of that competitive mindset. You don't want to have to go back and forth, and just make sure you've had enough of that competitive fulfillment, I guess, is you being fulfilled from the competition side is very important. Being able to watch it and not have your name or number on top of that scoreboard anymore to be happy with not seeing that. And I think Joe Girardi probably was the other one, just to make sure you take that jersey off when you want to take it off. And I think that was great advice. And I think when you look at that, it's when you take it off when you're ready, not let them taking it off for you by being there too long is important, because this year could have gone a number of different ways, but we've been competitive and done the things that we need to to do with where everything is at. And I think being able to do this last year and let everybody celebrate something that you kind of am a little bit embarrassed to say sometimes, because I always felt like it's bragging when you talk about how many times you've won or how many times you've been fortunate to be successful. But being able to let your guard down and do that right has been great for not only everybody around, but for myself included, because I would tell you that most of the year was for everybody else, but it's been very fulfilling to be able to hear all the stories, and it's been much different as we've gone through the season. So to start the season, I would tell you that was for everybody else, but to end the season, I would tell you that everybody made you feel good.
Hi, I'm Parker Kligerman. For more access like this from Pit Road, be sure to click and subscribe to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube channel.